Welcome. Well, we will get started here. Okay. Sure. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Marcy, do you know how many council members we have on the call?
Yes, you have a quorum.
I have quorum on here.
You do have more than 12.
4 or 5 will not be here.
Okay, we have 4 or 5. We're not attending.
Okay, John, send me those names in an email, please, later.
I will be glad to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, since we do have quorum and we know we're going to be missing a few anyways, why don't we go ahead and get started for the day? Good morning. I will call this meeting to order at 10:04 a.m. Welcome to the full council for ADDPC. Bonnie, would you like to do roll call, please? Oh, Marcy. So sorry. It's Friday.
Yes, I'll be glad to do a roll call. Let me start with Melissa, please, our chair.
Thank you. Melissa Van Hook, Chair for the Council, as well as Chair for Meaningful Careers Committee and a few others. Good morning.
Great, thank you. JC?
Hi, good morning. This is JC Farkas from the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities at the U of A.
Great, thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, she accidentally hung up.
Oh, okay, she's coming back on. Don't know if she's... Kathy, can you hear us?
I hit the wrong button. I meant to hit the speaker button and hit the leave button. I'm here. This is Kathy. I'm council member and chair of the work plan review committee.
Thank you, Kathy. Megan Cox?
Hi, this is Megan Cox, council member and guardian, co-guardian and sister to a sibling that's developmentally disabled.
Thank you. Jesse?
Jessie Barbosa, council member, Arizona Department of Health Services representative. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Bianca?
Morning, Bianca Demaro, family representative.
Perfect. Leanne?
Hi, Leanne Fuller, non-member.
Great. Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary Slaughter, and I'm representing a woman who was institutionalized, and next week she's going to be 89 years old.
Oh, that is wonderful to hear. Thank you. Ken?
Good morning, everyone. This is Kim Cows, council member.
Perfect. Monica?
Monica Cooper, council member, chair of the grants committee.
Perfect. Thank you. Mateo?
Mateo Treetop, self-advocate.
Perfect. Keith?
My name is Keith Jensen. I'm District South Independent Oversight Committee Chair.
Thank you. Kelly?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Roberts, Executive Director of the Institute for Human Development at Northern Arizona University.
Thank you, Kelly. Jana?
Good morning, everyone. Jana Merle, council member and chair of the Systems Access Committee.
Perfect. Kristen?
Good morning. Kristen Mackey, the administrator for the VR program.
Okay. Did I miss any other council members? I think I got everyone. All right. I'm going to count with anyone at the table that's a council member. I can't see. John?
No.
Okay.
No
perfect.
council members, but just me.
Just you. Okay. Got you. All right. Staff, let me begin with John.
Good morning, everybody. John Myers, Executive Director of the Council.
Thank you. Lonnie?
Lonnie Saints here, fiscal manager. Good morning.
Morning. Sarah?
Sarah Roof, communications director.
Jason?
Jason Singh, research and communications specialist.
Great. Thank you. And Michael?
Michael will not be with us today.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm here, Marcy Crane. Oh, we have Gabriella. Hi, good morning, Gabriella. We're just doing introductions.
Gabby, would you like to
Good morning.
Sorry.
Hello?
Yeah, we
Go
can
ahead,
hear you.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm not even putting the camera because I'm running around. I'm getting ready to go to downtown.
No worries.
Good morning, everyone. I spoke to Sarah earlier. We're doing an interview with Univision, which is a Spanish station here in Arizona. And I'm taking about 6 families over. So I might be in and out just a bit because they're bombarding me with some questions. But I'm eager to be here today. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Gabby. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing. We do have a little
Thank you.
celebration, just a little bit
Yes.
today.
I meant to be there celebrating, but it's taken over. I know. So I really meant to be there today and then to go over to the Capitol, but it's been a whirlwind since yesterday.
That's okay. You're right where you are supposed to be today. So thank you so much. Okay, everybody. We appreciate you. Oh, did Michael just join us?
He did. Michael Leva, can you just introduce yourself quick?
Hi, everyone. Michael Leva, Contracts and Grants Coordinator. Thank you.
Back to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, let's move on to agenda item B, our minutes review and approval. We're going to, excuse me, this is for a meeting from January 24th, 2025 for full council. I hope everybody has had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any corrections or changes that need to be made? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the meeting notes, the minutes as written for January 24th, 2025 for full council. Do I have a motion?
This is Kelly. I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Kelly. Do I have a second?
This is
This is
Kathy.
Jesse. Oh,
Sorry, Jesse.
no, go
Okay,
ahead,
that was-
Kathy.
All right, ladies, who has it? Jesse or Kathy?
Jesse.
Oh, this is Jesse. I vote to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, so much. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Is anybody not voting? Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Yes.
Okay, no question. Marcy, as far as, I'm going to skip back to agenda item A for a minute. As far as our guests go, I believe we have, I just wanted to know, I believe we have 2. I know Leanne is pending, Leanne Fuller. Her application is pending. We're waiting for approval, but she's a guest today. And then Keith Jensen is also a guest today. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you. I'll list them as guests. My apologies. I listed them as council members.
Oh, no problem, but thank you, just to be clear. Thank you so much. Okay, agenda item C, our fiscal and contract update with Lonnie St. Cyr, our fiscal manager.
Are you guys able to see the financials on the screen?
Yes.
Can you make it bigger, please?
Yes. And go through it. Remember, I don't have a computer right now, Lonnie.
Okay. Will do. This
I mean,
better?
you know what I mean. Don't go, don't read verbatim, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better? Everyone? Yes?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
have a giant screen in here, but I don't know about everybody at home.
It's working.
So you guys are unable to see the financial update?
But we
We're
can
good.
see it.
We're good. We see it.
Okay. So the council has received a total allotment of $1,501,328 for fiscal year 2023. The council has fully obligated these funds. A no-cost extension for the period of performance has been granted and now runs through September 30th of this year. There's approximately $16,595 remaining to be liquidated of those funds. The council has received a total allotment of $1,500,684 for fiscal year 2024. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of this year as well. There is approximately $633,155 remaining to be liquidated. These are funds that are being used for our current projects, so what's happening right now in 2025. And then finally, the council has received $676,694 for fiscal year 2025 funding. Congress passed another continuing resolution running through September 30th of 2025. However, there were no budget tables tied to this continuing resolution, so we're unsure of what the total award amount will be for fiscal year 2025. The budget sheet now shows both an estimate of the level funding, which is generally what we've been showing, and it also now shows the current award levels. So because there's no budget tables tied to our 2025 continuing resolution, we're still a bit unsure as to what our ultimate award level will be. So we're trying to plan for various scenarios as far as where funding will be. And so it should fall somewhere in between the estimate column and the actual column, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. If level funding is received, the council may need to find additional projects to fund. If the council receives no additional funding, cuts will have to be made. Also, the existing funds that have been already appropriated and awarded are available to us through multiple restraining orders right now, and that has not been resolved. So there's still some uncertainty even with the funds that we currently have been awarded. So just keep that on the back of your mind as well. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of 2026 for those 2025 funds. Any questions? I think I heard a ding.
Yes, that was Keith Jansen. Sorry if I'm out of line. You said there's some restraining orders?
Yes. So what happened is that there was a freeze put on our funds because they are DEI related. And that happened in late January. And 22 attorneys general said that's illegal, put an initial restraining order on that. They rescinded the memo saying, oh, okay, we'll stop, but the intent remains. And so the funds were still frozen. We couldn't access our funds in the system. And so then another restraining order needed to be put in place to say the original intent of the initial restraining order needs to stand. And so that is how we have access to our funding right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, understood. Sorry for being an idiot,
Oh no, it's very complicated. This is, yeah, it's not a bad question. And this is kind of unprecedented territory. We've never had appropriated congressionally approved funds just frozen to where we don't have access to what's been awarded. So it's a good question. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to the next sheet. I'm going to have to make this a little bit smaller so that everybody can see it. This sheet shows all the current projects funded by the council. Staff has been reaching out to grantees to get a better idea of what they're anticipating on spending, and for us to be able to process invoices as timely as possible, because again, with the uncertainty regarding our funds, it's kind of important to keep things very, very current in this atmosphere. And again, from when I put this together to what we've received this week, I probably received around 10 invoices this week. So thank you for those of you who have projects and are submitting invoices. I really appreciate it. It's not reflected in these sheets, but just know that invoices are coming in, bills are being paid, we're doing good. Everything's moving as it should. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, the final sheet, And again, this one's even smaller. I apologize. This sheet has been updated to reflect the projects outlined in the fiscal year 2025 and 2026 work plans, as well as the funding that has already been approved in the prior years. The funding year is generally the year prior to the project year. So what you see in fiscal year 2024 is pretty much what we're using with current contracts for our operations in 25. This estimate for 2025 is at the level funding amount, and it's what we're anticipating using for what we anticipate using for 2026 projects. So the funding is behind the operational year. We obligate in the first year and do the second. Fiscal year 2025 funds will be used primarily again for projects to be decided on in 2026. And currently there's an anticipated surplus of $191,170. So again, if we don't get full funding, we're going to be okay. If we do get full funding, we're going to have to find additional projects. If we get less funding, we may have to make cuts. And internally, we've discussed some contingency plans regarding this, but it's a little preliminary, and we're hoping to find out and get our notice of award from the continuing resolution in the next few weeks. So mid-May is kind of what we're hoping for. They're kind of saying mid-May at earliest. So in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, we should have a better idea of how we're going to proceed. But right now, we've kind of got plans for if we need to increase projects, if we need to decrease projects, and of course, everything will come back to the council for approval once we have more information. But there's still a lot of uncertainty right now. Any questions?
I have a question. This is Monica.
Yep.
What happens if, because of funding, a grantee cannot finish the project?
Well, right now, we're not in a situation that's an issue. So Marcy would be better able to probably answer that one. But there's contract language in there should funding not be available. But right now, every contract that we have in place has already been obligated and we have the funds for. And
Well,
so
that's good. No, I was just asking, what if?
Yeah, so the what if in this case, Monica, is that we won't fund projects moving forward. At this place where we are right now, we're not looking to end any contracts. It's just we may not be able to renew some of the ones that we were considering. So,
Hey, Lonnie.
Go ahead.
Hey, Lonnie. This is Melissa. I'm going to put a pause on any further discussion on specific budgetary questions, unless they're specific to your sheets right now. Any questions about operations, budgets, grantees? We do have a full agenda item on this and discussion time set aside in agenda item E, status of council funding and operations. So if anybody else has specific questions about how we're operating, what's going on with the funds, what we've heard from feds, how we're handling grantees, I'd like you to hold your questions until agenda item E. So unless anybody has a specific question for Lonnie about the sheets that she has reviewed for those numbers, otherwise we're going to hold our questions. Yes,
Okay,
Keith.
I'm going to ask it again.
Okay.
During that time.
That would be a great time, Monica. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Keith, is your question specific to Lonnie's budget sheets?
No, it's a comment. I was going to say, it sounds smart. You're paying your bills in advance. You're using 2025 money that's going to be used for 2026, etc. So it sounds like very smart program.
Yeah, we have a 2-year obligation period and a 1-year liquidation period. So any grant funding that we get is open for 3 years. And so the first year we try to obligate, the second year we try to perform the work. And then the third year is collecting all of those final invoices. So
Okay.
any other questions? And sorry about that, Melissa. Thanks
Oh,
for
no, no problem.
keeping
I'm sure,
everything in check.
I'm sure people have lots of questions, but we just had executive committee a week ago. So we do have much to discuss on this. That will be coming up here. All right, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item D, our executive director report with John Myers.
All right. Thanks very much, Lonnie, for all that information. There is an enormous amount going on, as everybody's aware, and much of it has to do with funding for the councils, for the P&As, for the USEDs. So we will have time to talk about that. I want to quickly discuss, as quickly as possible, discuss a few other items. First of all, I know we come back to this issue a lot related to people who've been appointed to the council or reappointed to the council. Just wanted to update everybody on the fact that 2 of our council appointments have actually been finalized. Vijay Sari has been formally reappointed to the council, and Raina Sims from the Division of Aging and Adult Services has also been formally reappointed to the council. Both of those have been pending for quite some time. We got confirmation within the last month that those reappointments have been made. We are still waiting for 2 mandatory members of the council, the Sonoran Center representative, J.C. Farkas, and our Department of Education representative, Jeffrey Studer. We are waiting for them to both be formally appointed. Those are in process. I have confirmed with boards and commissions that they're underway. Not exactly sure what the delay is. I never feel like I get quite transparent information, but boards and commissions is overwhelmed, and it takes them a long time to move through things. We are also waiting for 2 other individuals who've been requested to be appointed, Leanne Fuller and Justin Harris, as community members. One a family representative, one just a general community member. We are waiting for those to actually get underway. Wish I had more to say on that, but they just are very early in the process. But at least we've gotten a couple moving forward. With regard to the DES reorganization message, the Department of Economic Security is going through a little bit of a reorganization right now, and as a result of that, the DD Council is being moved from what has been our home in the Division of Business Services into the Office of Community Engagement, and that change is effective tomorrow. We just learned about this actually last week, so we weren't given a whole lot of a heads up, but it's a good move, I think, for us as a council. It doesn't really change anything for us operationally, but it puts us kind of into an environment where there are people who probably understand the work we do a little bit better than the folks at DBS, and that's not a knock on DBS. It's just that they're very business focused, they're very finance focused, and they don't necessarily understand the disability world. The folks in community engagement work with DED, they work with DOS, they work with really every DES division, and so they have some expertise, and it's going to be a pretty natural fit for us to move into that environment. Melissa and I, just before this meeting, had a kind of a get acquainted meeting with Leah Landrum Taylor, who's director for the Office of Community Engagement. She's a longtime state employee, a former state legislator. I think she's going to be fantastic to work with. She has a very solid reputation, and so we're pleased and we're encouraged. And I'm going to be setting up a meeting next week for our entire staff and the leadership team from CE to get together, get acquainted, and for us to bounce questions off one another and hopefully to educate them a little bit more on what we do so they have a little bit better sense of the nuances of the DD Council. The Division of Developmental Disability. Some of you may have heard they finally got their money. This has been an ongoing saga throughout the legislative session. It actually even predates the legislative session. And I know Gabby's especially excited about that. And as a provider, as members, as caregivers, I'm sure you all have a very heavy investment in this. I will say that I was impressed at ultimately the compromise that was reached to ensure DDD would get funded It was pretty acrimonious throughout the entire session. If you watched any of the appropriations hearings, you could see that there was a lot of politicization of this issue. There were barbs being thrown back and forth from both the governor's office and the legislature. I won't go into huge detail. The exciting thing is that the money finally came through. Now it does come with some conditions. The legislature is requiring some new actions on the part of Access in particular to report to the legislature on utilization of funds, on caseload growth, on a whole variety of things that previously had not been a requirement, may have been provided but were not required. So there are going to be some additional requirements on Access. There are going to be some additional restrictions coming forth in the future, in particular on the Parents as Paid Caregivers program. That program took a lot of the heat from legislators, from Republican legislators in particular, because it was seen as the primary villain in DDD's budget issues, in their budget overrun. I think that was overblown. It clearly was an issue, but I think it was singled out unfairly. The fact is, Arizona is an attractive place to live. Arizona's DD system is generous by the standards of almost any other state, and our caseload growth, our needs in Arizona have just grown tremendously over recent years. And so although the Parents as Paid Caregivers program was in fact one of the reasons why expenses shot up, it was not the sole reason. It may not even have been the primary reason, but nonetheless, there are going to be some new restrictions on that program coming forward. I won't go into all the details, but it was at least encouraging to see that lawmakers were willing to compromise. Ultimately, the Republicans gave quite a lot, and the governor's office had to give quite a lot in order to come to this agreement. And now the money will flow. What it's going to look like in the future is anybody's guess, given what's being proposed in Congress around Medicaid funding. So for the next 2 months, it looks like things are good. But for the next several months anyway, but what we have going into federal fiscal year 26 and beyond at this point is really an open question. So we can't get comfortable with the fact that suddenly everything is just, roses and unicorns. We need to continue to be diligent about pushing for maintenance of Medicaid and other programs that support people with disabilities, and we will continue to do that. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, Sarah Roof and I from the staff and Bianca Damara and Kathy Lewandowski from the council attended the Disability Policy Seminar in Washington, D.C. And we, first of all, appreciate the fact that Bianca and Kathy would take time out of their busy lives to join us across the country to do both some learning, but also some educating of our policymakers, of our elected officials in Washington. And I will just say briefly, I found it to be tremendously valuable because of the number of issues that we're facing right now around the disability world, not just Medicaid funding, but also education, also Social Security, a variety of other things that are really critical to individuals with disabilities. It was especially important for us to be there this year and to spend time in each one of our congressional offices to share information and to educate them. So I'm going to ask Bianca and Kathy, you can go in whichever order you want. If you would, please just kind of give a recap of your experience with DPS and what you found valuable about it, maybe what we can improve upon in subsequent years as we continue to advocate on behalf of people with IDD in the halls of Congress. So Bianca or Kathy?
I can go first. This is Bianca. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity, for us to be able to attend. It was a really wonderful experience, and it was also just really great to be able to put faces to names and to see familiar faces. We've been on remote meetings and calls for the longest time, and so it was just a nice reunion. I would say in general with DPS, it was a bit of a somber tone, just because there is so much on the line for our communities. And, it's been a fight, but, nevertheless, I think there's still that fire within the community to want to fight and to make sure that, these essential rights and are protected. When it came to meeting with the congressional offices, I was part of the group that, there were different groups of us. It was quite a number of different Arizona, representatives from different organizations that came along. It was wonderful to see so many Arizonans all together in DC. I was part of the group that met with Representative Siscomani's office, Representative Ansari's office, and, we stopped by Senator Kelly's and Gallegos' offices. I think in general, we express thanks to those Congress members who have been supportive of Medicaid, and we really tried to emphasize how critical protecting Medicaid is to the disability community, to those Congress members who have not, perhaps prioritized protecting Medicaid and Social Security. We also provided these really fantastic fact sheets from the council that were personalized to each congressional district that highlighted the impacts that cuts to Medicaid could have on a, kind of high level. And overall, I just, I hope we were impactful. You never know when you're leaving the representative's office or a senator's office, how impactful you were, but hopefully, I hope that it stayed with them, that we came all the way from Arizona just to say, either thank you or please listen to us. This is essential to Arizonans, the people that you represent. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Bianca. We appreciate that you took the time to go. Thank you so much. Kathy.
Thank you as well.
I agree with everything that Bianca said. It was a very meaningful time. I think I was encouraged by the number of young people that were at the conference. And so to hear their stories, to hear that what their plans are for the future. And I just was reinvigorated in this, in our fight to be heard and to, have our congressmen and representatives listen to us. I went to Schweikert's and Sari's office, and we met with their staff, and they are young, but I got the feeling from some of them that they listened to us, and I think what we left them and what we said to them does make an impact. I'm just hopeful that, those congressmen and representatives that are not, fully on board with us will think about it a little bit more, especially with all the changes that are happening. But I thank you for the opportunity to go. I think everybody should go if they get an opportunity. There were some states that had over 50 people there to represent their state. We had 26, which is not a bad amount of people to be there. And I enjoyed spending time with other organizations from Arizona, hearing their stories. And I enjoyed sharing our stories with, those around me. So thank you for allowing me to go.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say I've been going to the disability policy seminar since 2014, and never in my time have we had an Arizona delegation that was larger than maybe 12 or 13, maybe 14 people. So having 26 people there this year was really important, was really powerful. We had several provider organizations, Absolute, HCBS, Guthrie Mainstream Services, and Easter Seals Blake Foundation were all represented, as well as the council, Ability 360, Disability Rights Arizona, the ARC of Arizona, and the ARC of Tempe. And if I missed anybody, I apologize. But we had really broad provider and advocate representation, and Bianca and Kathy were fantastic in sharing information in those Hill meetings. So tremendously grateful to all of you. I also want to express some gratitude to Sarah for organizing our Hill meetings, which was like herding cats, and Mike Leva for all kinds of work getting the travel arranged and working with Sarah to make those congressional contacts. Really made a substantial difference to our ability to be successful. Oh, and IHD was there. Sorry, Kelly. Sarah Clancy from IHD was there. Thank you. Yeah. Keith?
I know that I'm down at the bottom level at IOC, but just in my district, there are two of us that on a relatively regular basis speak with senators and representatives from other states. And they've actually, we go to their office and they talk to us about the program, the entire program that we have in Arizona, and they are envious. They admire the program that we have all the way, from you guys, DES, DDD, all the way down to IOC. The reason they talk to us, according to them, the words they used were, yeah, they know how it's supposed to work. You know how it does. So the reason they talk to us is because, we're ground, boots in the trenches. And I've been summoned. I didn't have a choice because of my position to 2 other states and told them, why it works in Arizona. And, it's provable by the numbers, the number of people that move into Arizona or move back to Arizona, because they find out it's not all peaches and cherries. In the other states, it's not even near as good as it is in Arizona. So you guys, as well, all the levels that are helping our client members are doing a fantastic job. And though you may not know it, it is being seen around the country by other states.
Thank you. That's high praise. Appreciate that. Okay. So Kathy mentioned that she thinks everybody should go to the disability policy seminar if they have the opportunity. Just a heads up, in all likelihood, well, I should say, we hope we will have that opportunity again next year, and we will offer that opportunity to council members who wish to attend. Obviously, we can't offer it to the entire council, but we do have resources for council members to participate on behalf of ADDPC, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we learn more about the 2026 events early in the next calendar year.
Well, and if I can add to that, John, if we do have the opportunity, the stars align for all of it. For council members that are new, that haven't done any traveling to conferences or seminars or anything, you really don't have out-of-pocket costs or very little. Your airfare and your hotel are paid for up front. And you do get per diem or reimbursed for a specific dollar amount per day for your meals. Got to save your receipts. There's a limit on what you can spend. And the same thing for transportation if you need to take Ubers or anything else. So it is totally manageable. If you couldn't afford to go, something you can do. So not relevant at the moment. Yes, Keith, and then we really got to move on.
Okay. If a non-council member wanted to attend, let's say me, because I'm in Washington, D.C. quite a bit, and it was going on, would I be allowed to attend?
Yeah, absolutely. The event is actually open to the public, and lots of different organizations like the ARC or Easter Seals or a whole variety of different organizations participate in the event. So there's no restriction. There is a registration fee. It's a conference, so there's a registration fee and all of that stuff. But anybody who has a connection to the disability world is invited, welcomed, and we would be delighted to include you or anyone else in our planning for those Capitol Hill visits that take place as part of the event.
Thank you.
Okay. I was reminded by Melissa that I skipped one of my agenda items, which was to talk about some of the other things happening in the legislative session. So I want to quickly go through a few things that we know are moving through or have moved through that have an impact on the disability community. The first, and I'm going to go in no particular order here just because I made some notes. The first is House Bill 2330, which would introduce a new voluntary ID component for individuals with disabilities.
I said this one of my favorites.
Oh, okay. It's one of Jason's favorites. This would allow individuals with a disability to indicate when they apply for a driver's license or when they pay their vehicle registration, to indicate in the online database that they require some kind of communication accommodation. It would not be designated on the license itself or on the registration card, the tag, but law enforcement officers would be able to find it in their database if they do a check. If, for example, they pull a vehicle over and they do a check and they see that it indicates the person needs a communication accommodation, they would then know that they are approaching a vehicle of somebody who has a disability and perhaps has a communication challenge, and it would help inform them beforehand that they need to approach that vehicle a little bit differently. This is something that has been adopted in Texas and Florida and various other states. It has been fairly successful in those states. I made clear to the executive committee last week, it hasn't revolutionized their systems. There is still a need for law enforcement to receive additional training on working with the disability community, but it has assisted them at least in knowing how to approach a vehicle of somebody who has autism or has another developmental disability or intellectual disability, and it could be a person who is deaf or hard of hearing. Whatever the case may be, they will know that they need to approach that vehicle slightly differently. So that's House Bill 2330. Senate Bill 1356 relates to a group home monitoring project, the COMMIT project, which Disability Rights Arizona is overseeing. You may recall several meetings ago, we had a presentation by DRAZ about this program. It is specifically focused on group homes that serve people with complex needs, so behavioral health as well as IDD. The program, in our opinion, has been very successful over the last 2 years in identifying shortcomings in some ways that these group homes are operating, some of their record keeping, some of their staffing issues, variety of different things. This bill would reauthorize that program, would provide funding for that program, and would move it forward for an additional, is it 3 years, Jason?
Yeah.
Additional 3 years. JJ could tell you more about it if he were here today, but he's not. I'm sure we will hear more about it as the session comes to a close. This is moving through. Neither of these bills has been signed by the governor yet, but both of them look like they will land on the governor's desk, and we anticipate that she will sign them. There are also several bills related to education, related to school emergency response planning, or school safety programs. Representative Gress, who some of you are probably familiar with because he serves on the House Appropriations Committee and was one of the most combative members of the Appropriations Committee when it came to the DDD supplemental. He has sponsored a couple of bills that are not perfect, but they do require that schools take into account the needs of students with disabilities when they do their emergency response planning and when they put together safety plans and train school resource officers. So they are improvements over the existing system, even if they are not perfect. Those, I think, are going to also pass and end up with the governor. There are two bills sponsored by Julie Willoughby, another person who is on the House Appropriations Committee, and you probably have all become familiar with her in recent months. Two bills related to SNAP work requirements. So if you're on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, they would establish some work requirements. These are very controversial in the disability world because, generally speaking, work requirements have not proven to be effective for people who are receiving public assistance. And most disability organizations are greatly troubled by this because many people with disabilities are challenged with transportation or employment accessibility or various other issues that might make it difficult for them to either acquire employment or acquire the training necessary for employment. So we'll see where those go. It's my personal guess that the governor would not sign these if they land with her, but there's no guarantee of that. We'll keep you updated on that. There is a proposal to expand the current Silver Alert system to actually rename it the Safe Alert system and to expand the eligibility for that. You may recall several years ago, I believe it was 2017, we added people with cognitive disabilities to the Silver Alert system, so it was no longer just for aging individuals. It was now for people with an intellectual or developmental disability. This would expand the eligibility even more. And I think this probably is also going to pass through and be signed by the government or the governor. It's worthwhile in my personal opinion. This is a program that's proved to be overwhelmingly valuable, especially to people with IDD who have wandered from their homes or safe spaces. Dozens of people have been returned safely as a result of including the IDD community in the Silver Alert program. And then I did want to mention there was a proposal to establish a state greeting, establish howdy as the state greeting. Unfortunately, that bill never actually even got a hearing. We were all greatly disappointed by that, but you should all feel welcome to continue to say howdy and assume it is the Arizona state greeting. And then finally, I want to mention Senate Bill 1106, otherwise known as Ava's Law. My companion to the left here has been a strong proponent of this bill, as have a great many people in the disability community. It would establish some much stricter requirements on public entities, and in particular, schools and school districts, to do appropriate and rigorous background checks on people that they intend to hire for teaching or other staff positions. This bill originated as a result of an instance of sexual abuse against a student with a disability, a nonverbal student with disabilities, and the prosecution of the individual who engaged in that abuse. And the bill actually passed last year, but was vetoed by the governor because of some challenges, some difficulties with it that were addressed by schools and school districts around the state, as well as some other opponents. Some revisions were made. The bill passed again this year, and just earlier this week or last week, the governor signed it into law. So added protection for individuals with disabilities, and in particular students with disabilities, very much in keeping with the work this council's been doing for the last 7 or 8 years around preventing or responding to sexual violence against the IDD community. So a big win for the disability community on this one, and very pleased to be able to report that has been signed into law. I'm not going to go into any more. There's a whole lot of additional legislation. I do want to point out that we will be doing a session wrap up. We've done a couple of webinars throughout the course of this legislative session related to both state and federal issues. We did one at the beginning of the session to kind of set the stage. We did one during crossover week to sort of update people on where things stood. We'll be doing another one after the session ends, and nobody knows when that's going to be because there isn't a state budget yet. But whenever they adjourn sine die, we will set up a webinar to kind of update people on what happened, what to look forward to moving forward, and kind of let you know what passed, what got vetoed, what didn't pass, that kind of thing. And we'll inform everybody when that webinar is scheduled. Oh yeah, that might be in person, so it might be a hybrid event. We're thinking it would be good to have a live audience for that. Do a little MTV Unplugged for that. If you're old enough to remember MTV Unplugged.
It's a good show.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing on my update is listed as bylaws updates. And as I told the executive committee last week, the bylaws update is that there is no update. We did form an ad hoc committee to address some issues with our bylaws that need to be updated or amended. Because of all the issues going on around Medicaid, around DDD funding, around just federal funding for DD councils and other entities, we have not had a chance to bring that committee together. JJ Rico remains as the chair of that ad hoc committee, and I will be working with him in the near future to try and get our initial meeting scheduled. So if you're on that committee, thank you, first of all, for agreeing to serve on the committee, and my apologies that it has been so delayed. Some other things have just kind of come to the fore, and we will get working on the bylaws as quickly as we possibly can. So any questions on any of those things that we've talked about under this item?
John, this is Kelly Roberts, and while I don't have any questions, I'm putting this forth just out of my own concern. Some of the bills that you said have been put forth. My concern is that those are put forth with the understanding that people will act in the best interest of humanity. And at this point in time, I'm not convinced that's the case. And thus, I'm very concerned about more data being put into the system related to people in general and people with disabilities specifically that could then be used against them. The last one with the educators and, more screening, I'm fully on board with that one. But the other ones just concern me. It's more data that could be used against people. I just wanted to put that out there. I started putting in the chat box, but it took too long to type.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. And that's obviously a legitimate concern. And I should have pointed out that, for example, the driver's license or vehicle registration ID bill, that would be entirely voluntary. Anybody who wanted their information added to the system would indicate that when they fill out their license application or they renew their registration for their vehicle. It would not be required. So nobody would be forced to divulge that information. Given what is happening at the federal level and in some states, we certainly understand your concern, and we don't want to be putting anybody in our community in that position in Arizona. So for example, on that bill, again, it's just totally voluntary. I don't know that there are any other bills. The Silver Alert bill, or the Safe Alert, if that's what it ends up being called, that doesn't require any information put into a system either. A Silver Alert or a Safe Alert is only triggered when a caregiver reports, or a family member reports somebody missing from where they should be, and then law enforcement takes it from there and issues an alert to agencies around the state. But it doesn't require a database, doesn't require that anybody divulge personal information unless there is a situation in which somebody is placed in harm's way. So we do try to be cognizant of these issues when we're interacting with legislators or other policymakers, and absolutely we want to recognize your concern and make sure you know that we're trying to ameliorate any of those issues as we go through the policy process. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, John, for that. Hope you're not done talking. We are going to move on to our major agenda item of today, and that is the status of council funding and operations. This will be a joint conversation, but led by John, Marcy, and Lonnie.
Okay, I'm gonna take the lead on this, but they are going to jump in because I'm sure there is information that they can and need to share. First of all, I guess the big elephant in the room right now is what's going on at the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. As many of you may know, there was an announcement made several weeks ago that the Administration for Community Living, which has for many years been the oversight body for councils, protection and advocacy agencies, and University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. The ACL was being eliminated. And there was no announcement made at that time about where the individual entities under the ACL umbrella would go. But there was an assumption that we were going to go to what's known as the Administration for Children and Families, which actually predates ACL and was, as I'm told, was where councils were located, or all of our DD Act entities were located before ACL was established in 2012 or 2013. There's all kinds of change going on at HHS. We understood that not everything was going to be made clear to us immediately, but again, there was this assumption everybody was going to end up in ACL. While that reorganization was going on, there was a delay in issuing notices of award. As Lonnie mentioned in her fiscal report, we still have not, despite the fact that a continuing resolution, a full year continuing resolution was signed in March, we still have not received a notice of award for our for the second the second portion of our grant award for federal fiscal year 2025, which means that the money we've been awarded so far really only covers the first 6 months from October through March or mid-March. And we don't know what's coming to us for the remainder of the fiscal year. Another assumption was made, and we have been told by leadership at ACL or the former ACL that we should anticipate level funding for the year. But also, as Lonnie mentioned, there were no budget tables issued when the latest continuing resolution was signed. So we don't know that for a fact either. We don't know exactly where money was designed to go. We just believe that because it was a continuing resolution, it was all going to go to where it was designed to go initially. And I hope I'm making sense. We have been told that we should expect our notice of award for the remainder of fiscal year 25 by late May, mid to late May. If it's level funding, as shared earlier, then we are in good shape. We can continue to do the work we're doing. We can continue to fund projects. We might have to identify some to fund, but but we'll have the money that we have traditionally had. If it's less funding than anticipated, then we obviously have to make some adjustments. But we've been talking about what those adjustments would look like and where we could pull back and where we can pull things in-house, have staff take over responsibilities that are currently granted out to other organizations, that kind of thing. If it's zeroed out funding, which we certainly don't anticipate, but which, in today's world is a possibility, then as Lonnie mentioned, we have a small cushion and we could effectively make do through this current fiscal year. The problem comes with fiscal year 26. The reason I'm showing you this slide is a document was leaked from HHS last week. It was what's called a pass-back document that was sent to HHS from the Office of Management and Budget, which is an administrative and executive office in the White House. This document was an initial go at the fiscal year 26 budget for the Department of Health and Human Services. You can see under this headline for Administration for Community Living, it outlines where the organizations that were formerly under ACL are now intended to go. For aging programs, they would go to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Administration for Children and Families, which I mentioned a few moments ago, would get the disability and nutrition programs. That's councils and P&As plus all nutrition programs like Meals on Wheels and so forth. And then this newly created office, the Office of Strategy for the Office of Strategy would get various other programs, including independent living and the USEDs. So formerly, the P&As, the councils, and the USEDs had all been together. This would split us up. P&As and councils would go to ACF. The USEDs would go to this new Office of Strategy. Apologies if I'm not making sense, but I will try to make sure that it all makes sense as we go. Now, what does that mean, or why is that important? Well, it's important because, first of all, it's splitting up these entities that are what's known as the DD network. We are the 3 entities that are specifically established by the DD Act, the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act, which was originally passed in 1975 and then reauthorized in 2000. It would split us up. But more importantly, and I'm going to just, sorry, I'm scrolling through here. I'm going to show you some other information. Here you can see this is some budget information for nutrition and disability services. You can see the overall totals for things like TDI, independent living, and AT. But if you go farther down the page in this particular document, you see that under nutrition and disability services, state councils on developmental disabilities are zeroed out. Developmental disabilities protection and advocacy agencies are zeroed out. Developmental disabilities projects of national significance are zeroed out. Why is that important to us? Because our Bridging Aging and Disability Networks project, which received a grant from ACL, would be zeroed out. and then several other projects would be zeroed out. Essentially, what they're proposing is that councils, and by the way, elsewhere in the document, it zeroes out the USEDs. So what they're proposing is that every DD Act entity would no longer receive federal funding, or at least not direct federal funding. Effectively, they are talking about eliminating the DD Act programs. Oh, by the way, you can also see in yellow up here, they're talking about eliminating Head Start, a whole bunch of other programs as well that have traditionally been funded by the federal government. It goes well beyond the disability community, but for our purposes, it has enormous impact on us if this ultimately passes. Now, what are they doing to help, I guess, mitigate the impact? Well, they would be adding money to independent living. State independent living councils, statewide independent living councils, and centers for independent living like Ability 360 or Direct or Assist to Independence, they would actually see an increase in their funding. And you can see here it says the budget provides $453.183 million for independent living and a $325 million increase above the 2024 level because, as the second sentence says, the grants should provide flexibility to states to use the funding to provide services and supports provided by the disability programs the budget eliminates. Our best read on this is that what they're proposing is to eliminate the funding for the USEDs, the PNAs, and the councils, and give statewide independent living councils the opportunity or the flexibility to take those programs under their wing and provide funding to keep some or all of their programs going. You can see why this is problematic for a number of reasons. We have a great relationship with our independent living community here in Arizona, but to do what they're proposing would take away our independence as a council. It would take away the independence of the USEDs and the PNAs. It would place us into an area where developmental disabilities have not been a strong suit historically. The independent living community is by and large focused on physical disability with some focus on intellectual and developmental disabilities, but it's not their primary area of focus. There are all kinds of issues around this. There are probably more than I have time to go into because I want to give everybody else a chance to weigh in on this. But essentially what they're proposing in this initial document, which I want to point out is not the final word, but in this initial document, they're proposing eliminating all of the DD Act programs and taking away our funding, but giving them to independent living programs to administer, or giving some of that money to independent living programs to administer. And if they wish to take on the DD programs and continue the work that's been done. What that would look like is anybody's guess. That would have to be negotiated on a state-by-state basis with the state independent living councils. How that would be enacted is also problematic because the Silks are not set up to receive or make funding in the same way our programs are. There's a whole host of problems. Again, we could talk all day about it, but what's most concerning to us is that this administration wants to do away with the work that we have done. And in doing so, they want to completely do away with a federal statute that established us without congressional approval. So we obviously have to take this seriously, even though this is just a proposal that's going to go from the White House to Congress. And I can say without hesitation in my lifetime and probably in most of our lifetimes, Congress has never passed the budget that the White House has given, regardless of the administration, regardless of how much they might agree philosophically with the current administration. Congress always takes seriously its own right and its own responsibility to establish the federal budget. But it's concerning because these are the priorities of our current administration, and they can have sway with our elected officials in Congress. So we have to take this seriously. I do want to point out, as I said, this is not the final word. Our organization, NACDT, AUCD, the USAID National Organization, National Disability Rights Network, which represents the P&As, lots of other organizations as well, are pushing back on this. They've come together. They're putting together messaging for Congress, for the public, for communities around the country, to try and point out why it's important not to take these steps, to try and point out why it's important to continue supporting the programs that are doing so much good around communities around every state in the nation. But it's going to require a lot of work on our part, and it's going to require us to be aware of what is being proposed and what is being attempted by this administration. So I know that I haven't covered everything. The last thing I would say before I ask Marcy and Lonnie to weigh in is that we are, as has been expressed before, we are planning for whatever contingencies may come our way. The fiscal year 25 appropriation for us, the notice of award we're waiting for, will determine, at least to some degree, how long we can continue to operate with existing money. If it's level funding, and if our period of performance remains the same as it always has been, then we have through at least fiscal year 26 to continue operating and utilizing that money and making whatever accommodations we have to make, but at least we will stay solvent and existent. Beyond that, it's sort of anybody's guess. And so we want to make sure that it doesn't come to this sort of worst case scenario. I hope this is making sense. I'm not sure if it is, but Lonnie or Marcy, if you would weigh in with any additional information, please do so.
I think you pretty much covered it. I have nothing to add.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, this is Marcy, the only thing I would add in the budget sheet that Lonnie provided, if you guys take a look at that, is where all the projects are kind of laid out. We're really pushing to make sure that contracts that are funded right now, either through 630 or 930, do their project to the scope of work that they were awarded for and spend those dollars. We want to make sure that first and foremost. We are also just putting in contingency plans to look at different scenarios about what might happen depending on the notice of award for fiscal year 2025 that we're awaiting for, depending what that amount looks like. And then also just seeing, we're also hearing what other state councils are doing. We're learning what other state councils are proposing on their end. And so we're trying to see what, they're all in different, they're in the same boat, but they are all looking at different scenarios as well, communicating with their governor's office, their own designated state agency. Some of them are their own designated state agency. So everyone is all on the same boat, but rocking a little bit differently on how they're looking at it going forward. So I would just say that. And the other thing I would make clear is we do have a work plan committee. Kathy oversees, it chairs that work plan committee, and the members have not met. But I do want to let folks know we are not have not issued out any new solicitations because of the uncertainty. We put that notice on our grants page. I have notified at least a dozen folks who have contacted me about new funding opportunities. So we're not releasing anything. And we do not have anything projected to go out either in 2026, which is our 5th year of our final work plan, of our 5-year work plan. So we have been in the process of reviewing that, and we have to submit an update to the feds, but we don't have any information when, where, how that's going to happen. So those are all things that also kind of play into the uncertainty about how we proceed with planning anything in terms of projects.
Yeah, and I would point out that we know we're not alone. Within DES itself, there are probably any number of other federally funded programs that may be looking at some kind of cut or elimination as well. So I have communicated with the governor's office. I have communicated with the attorney general's office. I talked to the AG's office in particular because we are statutorily established, and I think we and many others believe we would have a legal case if they tried to eliminate our programs. But I've also got a meeting with Michael Weishart, the director of DES, next week to go through this and make sure he understands not only that we're aware of the situation, but that we are in fact looking at the different scenarios that might come our way and get his take on our status and how we continue to move forward with our memorandum of understanding with DES, how we move forward into the next fiscal year, depending on what happens with the funding situation. So we're trying to take into account not only what we do with our money, but also who we need to be communicating with to ensure that everything is dealt with to the best it can be. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Well, and I would, and you can say you are in touch with leadership for the national councils for NACDD. I'm not getting my acronyms right. Sorry, my brain is so scrambled from all of this. I know you've been in touch with leadership in general across the country for other councils, right?
Yes.
So I think it's important to ensure that our council members, that isn't just on a local level, but what contacts you have on the federal level and what that's like. Want to share that just a little?
Sure. I serve on the board of directors for the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, NACDD. And so I've been involved in a lot of conversations, and we have, as Marcy pointed out, we've been communicating with other councils, some of which have been forced by their state agencies to put together a written plan, a written contingency plan, some of which have done so voluntarily, some of which are trying to just get a better sense of where they stand. But overall, on a national level, we have come together with some messaging. If you go onto our website, for example, you will see that we have put on there a statement related to this issue. What we've been clear about is that we don't know a lot of things. There are a lot of questions we can't answer at this point. And because this was a leaked document, the folks at HHS are not allowed to talk about it. This is not supposed to be for public view, but it's been in the media, so we feel like we're okay sharing it. I mean, it's been everywhere already for more than a week. So they're not allowed to talk to us about it, but we can talk amongst ourselves about it, and we can talk with our sister agencies in the disability world about it, and we can address it. We can't necessarily, but to some degree, certain people in the disability world can address this with elected officials. Reminder that we are not allowed to lobby. We are not allowed to really engage in specific budgetary discussions with elected officials. So we have to talk around it. We have to talk about issues. We can't talk about dollars and cents. So we have to be very careful with that. But I guess in a nutshell, we are working together as a disability community, as a national disability community, try and address these things and to try and educate the public, or most importantly, I guess, educate our elected officials who are ultimately going to be voting on whether this kind of thing moves through. Is that what you were looking for?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We did want to open this up and give people a chance to ask questions. As I said, there are a lot of things we don't know at this point, but there probably are some things we can answer. And we wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to ask. And if we can't answer, we'll just tell you we just don't know. But you can imagine the level of anxiety and the level of stress this creates for us as a staff, because living in a world of uncertainty is never comfortable, and living in a world of heightened uncertainty is especially uncomfortable. But we are continuing to do the work that we are required to do as part of our work plan as best we can, with some adjustments, such as not putting out new requests for proposals. We can't make financial commitments at this point because we don't know what our finances are going to look like. We will try to, as best possible, honor the commitments that we've made so far. And if things change and we have the money to spend, we will find ways to spend it wisely. But it would be imprudent of us to try and reach out and make new commitments when there's no guarantee that the money is going to be available to us to support any new programs. So we're in a very difficult position, and you know, trying to operate basically on two tracks at the same time.
So, and before if anybody has any questions, I do want to say, I want to thank, as chair and then as a council member as a whole, I want to thank our staff. You guys have done an amazing job working together and keeping things moving. I can't stress, you know, around Bonnie and Marcy, because it's the world you live in of money. But all of you, and thank you all so much. Jason, Sarah, John, thank you for continuing to move forward and do the work that you do. Okay, Kristen, go right ahead.
Thank you. Wanted to add just a bit from a VR perspective, and of course we are under the Federal Department of Education from VR, our independent living older blind program as well. Receiving little bits of information, but not much, to the extent that, you know, John is saying there's still a lot of conversation going on about where the VR program might land, if they would separate the independent living older blind program away from education and possibly move them into Medicare, Medicaid systems with the aging that has been floated. So we've heard that. In terms of grant awards, the VR program, we did receive our final award for the rest of this fiscal year. We just received that last week. The Independent Living Older Blind Grant Award for the rest of this year came in yesterday. And my notice of award for the SILC and the Title B funds to pass through to the SILC came through yesterday. So we were kind of, you know, waiting. We had been told the same thing, that level funding would be provided, but that they had laid off so many people within the fiscal departments that they were just challenged to get the notices out in a timely fashion. So, you know, those have been trickling out. So at this point, the 3 grants that we were expecting to receive, those notices, we have received them. There is no information though about 2026 yet. We continue to do advocacy through the various national councils as well for VR. I will say that we were heard in terms of, for 2024, we received flat funding. There is a statutory requirement for annual cost of living that was not applied for 2024. But when we got our grant award this year, the 2024 COLA was applied along with the 2025. So while it sounds great to get a little bit more money, it was a significant influx of money that we were not planning for, and we just have until September 30 to spend. So many states across the nation, us included, are looking at, do we have the money to meet the extra match requirement? And then would we be able to spend the pre-employment transition service 15% reserve on the additional money? And could we authorize enough service dollars out the door by 9:30? So just a little bit of a sense of where it's happening across other programs. There's still conversation about, you know, could we move to Department of Labor? Could we move to HHS? I think the prevailing thought is Department of Labor would be where they move VR. And then that the Independent Living Older Blind program, if preserved, there's some doubt whether it would be preserved. If preserved, would go to Health and Human Services somewhere. So we're all, you know, keeping a close eye and listening and watching for leaked documents as everybody is.
So,
Lonnie, do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the funding levels of the awards that are coming through, and I understand the challenges of getting surprise additional funding and being able to spend that. So, yeah, good luck. And then, you mentioned multiple awards. So were those other awards, if you know, were those at level or increase, or were any of them less than?
They were not less than anticipated. The other 2 were level funding.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your insight on
Yeah, the one from ACL came through at like 4 o'clock in the morning one morning. So I think they're trying to get those out. Hopefully you guys will be next and soon.
Yeah, here's hoping we'll get it earlier than anticipated.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kristen.
This is Monica. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I'm just curious, do you guys have a contingency plan what happens if a grantee cannot finish because of funding? I know, Lonnie, you had said we're not at that point, but how do you handle something like that if a grantor cannot finish a project? Will they be able to start again when things improve, or what happens?
Well, at this point, we don't know if things will improve. And so let's say that there's no funding now through this administration, and let's say the next administration that comes in, they may have funding. We haven't entertained contingency plans to that level at this point, Monica, because it's something that we're really not anticipating. We will look into that. Again, we're still relatively early in our contingency planning, and hopefully if things play out in the way that it did for Kristen and her programs, it's looking like level funding is something that is realistic to anticipate. But again, as we're having these contingency planning conversations, yeah, I think we need to have a serious discussion, and this is something more in contract language and procurement. They probably have written procedures for those. At this point, I'm not sure what those are. But trust me, I bet you the state has something in writing for what to do if, funding ceases on existing contracts. So we'll just have to look into that a little bit deeper. So I'm sorry, this is a question, an answer for your question right now. I don't know if Marcy knows offhand, but yes, I'm sure with the state, there's something in writing with procurement as to how to address the question that you had.
I'm not asking because I want anything to happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have an answer. I'm sure it's written in policy somewhere. And we're just hoping that that won't be the case. And we don't anticipate that's a very much a worst case scenario. And I don't think we're there yet. And I'm sure there's a policy in place to deal with that situation should it occur.
So I was just asking in case, like I said, I don't wish anything like that.
Oh, we know. Thanks for your question, though. It's important for us to think about and consider.
Yeah.
Mary?
A question. I just want to make sure I've got this scenario correct. If I just might be inclined to go talk to my congressperson, there's really 3 issues that I'm seeing here that I'd want to discuss with them. One is what's being proposed is basically eliminating a statute, the DD Act, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's I just want to make sure I get that right. The second part is it would appear that there's a significant reduction in the amount of money that goes with the DD Act that comes to Arizona. So there's 3 pieces to that. There's what's the total amount that the USEDs get? What's the total amount that the DDPC gets, and what's the total amount that the P&A gets? So if we can keep track of how much is that, how much are those 3 entities, how much of the federal money is coming to Arizona for those 3 entities compared to what they're going to propose, that gives me something to say to this person that it's probably a significant reduction.
Well, can I add something to that? Mary, the other thing with this reorganization, if this is what happens, and if they give this funding, all of it would go to AZ Silk. And then it would be up to them for AZ Silk to decide if they even want to have ADDPC, the two USATs, and DRAS exist. So they could choose to keep all that money for themselves and spend it on programs. And I know you get that, but so in case it's not clear, they don't have to do anything. We don't have, it's up to them if the rest of us even exist.
And that's my third point of the points, because it can be so confusing. The third point to me to make to somebody is, how is that money administered in the state of Arizona? And they're talking about having that go through the Silk apparently, or independent living centers, the entity there. So another question that I have related to that is, in Arizona, is there a statute now that we have that says any federal money that comes to Arizona has to be approved by the legislature as to what happens with that money currently?
Well, a couple of answers to your several questions. First, going back to the question about the DD Act, yes, they are essentially and effectively eliminating the DD Act without going through the proper congressional steps to do that with this proposal. I want to make sure that we use the word proposal as much as possible, because it is not. So that is what they are proposing to do, which obviously raises legal issues. The DD Act not only established our three entities, but it also established, as it was reauthorized, it established a minimum funding level, at least for the councils. I can't speak to the P&As and USIDs, but there's a minimum amount that is supposed to be spent for councils across the country every year. This would do away with that, which also raises legal issues. I want to say, if you decide you want to speak with a congressional representative, and I want this to be clear to everybody, please do not say you are there on behalf of the council. Please do not say you are there representing the council. You might probably even avoid saying you are a council member, because we've been cautioned that anything like that can make it look like the council is lobbying on behalf of its appropriation, which we are strictly prohibited from doing. So just a caution. You can talk about dollars and cents all you want, just don't bring it up in the context of being a council member.
Got it.
So now I've lost track of the last question.
The control of the.
Yes, there was a proposal. There was a continuing resolution introduced in the legislature this year that would have put a ballot measure on the next general election ballot related to the legislature controlling all federal appropriations that come into the state. The legislature having to give approval. Honestly, I do not know where that stands. Is it still alive?
It's still alive, but it's not. Yeah. Anyway, it's fine right now.
Okay. If it passes, if a continuing resolution passes to put something on the ballot, then the governor has no say over it. If it passes, it just goes on to the next ballot. I'll check on that and let you know where it stands.
I knew that there was something about that going on. Okay, so it just helps me to understand if I'm trying to explain this to somebody that there's three entities to it. Are we getting a reduction in the amount of money that comes for these three kinds of entities?
Right. Yeah, we do have some folks doing those calculations right now, trying to figure out. I think that the general sense is that 325 million additional dollars would not be enough to support all of the existing programs to the same extent that they are supported now. But don't quote me on that, because I'm not positive that that's the case.
Yes.
I think the general sense.
But I'm worried about that we're going to get a reduction in the amount of money that's coming to Arizona. I'm worried about how it's administered, because it doesn't have any guarantees coming with it, and it basically is a proposal that looks like it eliminates the statute without going through the proper steps. Okay, I just want to
Exactly.
make sure I got all three things right.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
And yeah, there are just, I mean, maybe it's impossible in a document like this to go into all of the nuances and all of the policies and rules and all that. But this document leaves so many questions unanswered, leaves so much room for a variety of interpretations, and provides so little detail on how it would be implemented that it's almost impossible to see how this is even realistic. I mean, it takes the state of Arizona years just to produce rules around legislation that gets passed. And this is at the federal level. It could take years just to produce those rules, to figure out how any single one of these would be implemented, much less the kind of wholesale revisions that they're talking about for hundreds of programs. So, you know, it's a mess. It's just a mess.
Well, another thing that's important for me to say to people that are in positions to be able to do something about this is that one of the reasons that Arizona has such a great reputation for developmental disability services is because we have systems like this that really help it work right. But this is a specific thing that can be not cited, just kind of discussed, such as, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is
Kristen, go right
Kristen, kind of Mary, to answer your question on who administers. So the VR program is the designated state entity to receive the funds from the feds. Then we pass through to the Independent Living Council. So right now we pass our current grant award. Those funds get passed through directly to the council, who then decides how that money is used. We agree to their plan, their state plan for independent living, their spill. And we agree on what kind of activities and goals they will have that they'll work on with those dollars. But DES VR is the recipient of those dollars, and then we work with the Silk to figure out how those dollars will be spent.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Lonnie.
Sorry, forgot I was on mute. And I just want to put a reminder out there. This is not the first time that they tried to, they moved PD councils. So I want to say in around 2018, under the first Trump administration, they did try to combine councils with independent living councils and traumatic brain injury. And we were able to explain why we were established in the way that we were and why it may not work to anyone's best interest to combine those entities. And we won that fight, and everybody remained established as they were. So we do have a fight ahead of us, it looks like. Again, none of this it's necessarily going to happen, but just know that we've been in this situation, we've put up the fight, and we were able to stand our ground. So if that gives you any comfort at all, but it is a fight and you do have to put in pressure. So thank you. Mary, it sounds like you're willing to go to bat. So yeah.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? Okay, you can always reach out to John or council staff. I'll just preface this with saying they don't have a crystal ball. Probably Kristen either, but they're doing the rest to stay on top of it and stay apprised. So that's a little stress in the job, guys. Thank you so very much. Okay, Mary, go right ahead before we move on to agenda item F.
Just one other comment. The fact that there was such a great advocacy effort going on with so many families with the recent DD supplemental or whatever you call it. It's like great. There was a whole educational process that went on there, and the people making decisions understand that this is a large constituency. So that was very timely in lots of ways, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. The last thing I want to mention is what's on the screen now. This is a document that was just published the middle of this week. I'm going to send a PDF copy to all the council members, and we'll post a copy with the documents for this meeting as well. That provides some more insight into what the document would do as it relates to the disability community. So if you're interested in understanding more, this is a really good resource. As Melissa mentioned, you're welcome to contact me. You're welcome to contact any of us, and we will share whatever information we can. We will certainly keep you updated as more information comes our way. But right now, there's just a lot that we can't tell you because we just don't know. Even our folks at NACDD are saying the same thing. We don't have all the answers, but we are working diligently on this. We will be doing everything we can to demonstrate the value of councils, the value of this council, the value of Disability Rights Arizona, the value of the USEDS, of the Institute for Human Development and Sonoran Center. Collectively, we have come together. We are, just so you know, we are having conversations with Melia Du, who's the director of the Statewide Independent Living Council, because this obviously affects them as well. We are dedicating a lot of time to this particular topic right now, and we want you to be informed, so we will keep you as we know more.
Okay. We're going to move on to agenda item F, our committee work group report outs. Our first committee, there's probably not a whole lot going on, but that would be grants with Monica.
Well, we have not met, and like Lonnie was saying, until we know, we're probably not going to meet until we know what our funding is.
Yes, ma'am, understood. Thank you, Monica. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Next up, system access and navigation with John Morrell.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get my head around everything that we just talked about. It's hard to kind of pivot. Yeah, so the Systems Access and Navigation Committee has not met since our last meeting, like Monica's group. And we did kind of talk, Sarah and John and I met this week and talked about an opportunity or an idea for the committee to gather and take and reevaluate the different objective areas to reprioritize kind of the focus of the committee. We know that a lot of the bridging work that's being done for the aging community, kind of there's a little bit of a crossover there. So we want to re-identify kind of what our priority areas as a committee can be, where we can be most effective and the work that we do can be the most actionable. And also wanted to just report out that the resource tool, the getting started tool, is live and it's on the DDPC website. And we have heard that people are already using it. It's being helpful for them. So the other piece of that is just continuing to populate that tool with additional resources, the focus being in the area of the aging population. And so again, we're kind of leaning into our friends that are participating in the bridging work to help inform us with those additional resources that we can add. So I want to just also defer to Sarah for some help with cleaning that up if I forgot anything.
I think you did a great job, Jana. I think that one small silver lining about the crisis we've been experiencing is the opportunity to reflect on what we're doing, realign on our activities, both staff work, like what we do day to day, and also checking in with our work plan, making sure we're focused. It is humbling. You know, at the end of the day, we're a team of 6 plus all you amazing volunteers. And there's like 7+ million people in this state. The good news, and I have full confidence in sharing this with you, we have seen such a coming together of Arizona's disability advocates. Another part of the silver lining. So now we're looking to see how we can leverage our partners to carry out our mission, you know, to reach these underserved groups, you know, to increase system access. And that's what we want to focus on, like working smarter, not harder, and maybe working in some different ways and getting more creative, you know? So that's just what I would add.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah.
Well said. Thank you. And thank you for your work on that, Jana, and your committee as well. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next up, meaningful careers. I'm actually going to be brief. I do not need the whole 15 minutes on here. Two new policy briefs were written and uploaded to the council's website. Inclusion is the best predictor of academic success for students with disabilities. Well, so while inclusion in Arizona has improved, progress varies by disability. Students with intellectual disabilities still have the lowest rates. Document 5 ways Arizona can advance inclusion for students with disabilities. Identifies 5 basic ways Arizona can continue supporting inclusion to change lives. Dual enrollment programs allow students to take college classes while enrolled in high school. These classes count for both high school and college credit. Dual enrollment increases students' chances of graduating from high school as well as enrolling in and completing college, yet Arizona students with disabilities are really missing out on these benefits. So across the whole of Arizona, the average high school participation in dual enrollment courses is 24.5%, while for students with disabilities, it's less than 2%. It's abysmal. So dual enrollment facts, that is a brief, offers simple steps Arizona can take to increase the participation of students with disabilities. This is underemployment because we know the more educated somebody is or the more training they have, the more likely they are to be gainfully employed and keep that. So then meaning our committee, we're waiting to find out about our funding, like we all are right now. We're in suspense. And there are 2 important meaningful careers activities that are on hold right now. We wanted to meet again, but we have obviously postponed that for the time being. So the committee has expressed support to expand Project Search sites. So Project Search is a unique business-led, 1-year employment program that takes place at the workplace. So there are 2 programs, one for high school students transitioning into the workforce and one for adults. It creates an opportunity for career exploration through various hands-on training in a variety of departments. Participants acquire competitive, transferable, and marketable job skills. 344 interns have graduated from Project Search in Arizona, and 71% of Arizona Project Search graduates obtained competitive integrated employment since 2019. So Mike has been meeting with the Project Search team and has identified a potential partner, and that would be Mesa Public Schools. So Mesa Public Schools wants a Project Search program and requested the Project Search team meet in October of 2025 of this year. So which is actually the beginning of federal fiscal year 2026. And they would like to discuss setting up a new search program there, Project Search. If we can move forward, the council will partner and provide funding for the licensing fee. The payment for the one-time licensing fee is $18,000 to pay that for Project Search. And then moving forward, that's followed by an annual renewal fee of $350, which will be paid by the site, in this case, which would be Mesa Public Schools. One more thing, this one is short. So the committee has also expressed support for a project to use the services of a nationally recognized disability leader and a policy expert, same person, to coordinate and facilitate a leadership development and advocacy skills training program for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their family members. So to help them become leaders and advocates for systems change in Arizona. So it truly is an advocate training program, parent and family caregiver training program for systems change. We have been in communication with Alan Bergman to develop leadership training webinars and develop advocacy skills content for 2 all-day in-session trainings. Alan Bergman is aware of our funding situation as is on standby. Kelly, we do have some developed, but I think that this is a little bit more than that. And I don't think Mike is with us anymore. Has Mike left the session?
No, I'm here.
Michael, could you please answer Kelly's question that aren't there already programs out there like this? Why is Alan different? Why are we scoring this?
Well, part of our work plan was that we would expand the webinar series, and we wanted to really utilize, as you said, a nationally recognized individual. And I did a lot of research. North Carolina hired Alan to do a series of webinars. And so what I did is I asked Alan if he could provide that kind of service, and then also add in advocacy skills training. What we want to do is we want to have the series of 6 webinars, but we would have 2 in-person sessions, one at the beginning and one at the end. And yeah, and we want to partner with Care for the Caregivers, Diversability, and APSI to promote this program.
Yes, Kelly, it is not developing new materials. It really is about training advocates, if that makes sense. Yes. Okay. You're welcome, Kelly. Hi, Kristen. Go ahead.
Hello, just a quick question. I heard Project Search, and I kind of heard the council doing some work with a couple different entities. So the council will pay for because we pay for the fee for a lot of project searches across the state. So I just want to make sure we were not like overlapping each other. Who's going to pay for the ongoing job development or the on-site folks? Is that then the Mesa Public Schools will provide that and pay that?
That would be Mesa Public Schools, yes.
Okay, cool. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay. So the other part of my update, go ahead, Keith.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, I can tell you from personal experience, the high school and college at the same time works very well. It allowed me to achieve a PhD by the age of 19.
Excellent. So you are a supporter of dual enrollment. Congratulations. That is really, really impressive. We are on the right track. Thank you so much for that. Okay. So Kristen, you were under here, but you already did your update. Do you have anything else to add on the status of VR funding, where you guys are going to live at the federal level?
Nope, sorry if I jumped the gun on that. Just thought I'd add in the funding conversation.
No, it's absolutely fine. It fits in perfectly. I know. We're all still kind of, our heads are spinning. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, behavioral health and IDD committee with Jason.
Yeah, I don't only have any updates at this point. Our last meeting, we were, we reviewed some legislation that we already talked about, and then we actually, we were supporting some advocacy at the Capitol, because news committee were there, so that's what we're doing, and we'll keep doing what we're doing. So.
Yeah, we were supposed to meet again, but as you mentioned, we did end up canceling that meeting because you and a number of other people were doing what you needed to do at the Capitol. It's more important than our meeting. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, work plan review committee with Kathy Lewandowski.
Hi, we haven't met since January, and we canceled our last meeting because of the things that were going on right now, but we hope to get together in May because we have to review the report or that the staff will prepare regarding what about our objectives for this last year. So we don't really have much to report right now, but hopefully next council meeting we'll have more to report.
Okay, Kathy, thank you. John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Along the lines of what Kathy's mentioning, I wanted to remind council members that we do have a work plan update for fiscal year 26 due on August 15th. And that is a key responsibility of the work plan review committee to oversee that and provide input on the direction we're taking. So we are looking forward to that. And I did want to mention, we didn't put it on the agenda for today, but it sort of folds into this. I want to mention the work that's being done on our next 5-year plan. We're proceeding with optimism, and we are continuing the work to prepare our 2027 to 2020 or 2031 state plan. The folks at IHD are leading the project, as we've shared in the past, and we are in the process of the comprehensive review and analysis development process with planning for some focus groups, planning for a statewide survey, planning for various efforts to get community input, and then develop that CRA, which will then guide us in drafting the 5-year plan, which will then also get community input. So that process continues. We're looking forward to hosting various town halls and distributing that survey during the months of May and June.
Okay, thank you so much, John. Thank you for the committee report outs. Let's move on to agenda item D, our announcements. Are there any announcements from council members or staff?
Sure. This is Sarah. Please join us in an hour if you want to spend some more time on Zoom today for our virtual town hall. We have seen high interest. More than 330 people are scheduled to attend. The timing is crazy. As Governor Hobbs signed that DDD funding bill yesterday, we have invited we have confirmations from 3 elected officials who were involved in that, Republicans and Democrats. So they're going to be stopping by the town hall. We're going to be answering questions about the federal situation. So if you want to learn more about the latest Medicaid updates, we have a great expert speaking to that. We have a brand new frequently asked questions sheet about the special education situation in Arizona from expert Amanda Glass at Disability Rights Arizona. And yeah, it'll be a very informative session.
Registration in the chat.
Oh yes, I can put the registration.
I was gonna ask. Sarah will post the registration link in the chat. Some details there. Thank you. The keyboard? Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have any announcements? Okay. And then if there are no more council members that have any announcements, we're going to move on to agenda item I, which is a call to the public for Keith, since Keith is with the public. Perfect. Hi, Keith. Go right ahead.
Sorry to be such pain.
No, no problem. We're really happy you're here and participating. Thank you so much.
Okay. I have to be in federal meetings when you're doing your roundtable or town hall. Anything about the special education, could you send me an email concerning that?
What specifically were you looking for? Updates on?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's anything to do with the special education, because that would have effect with me with IOC. And I do PRC. And I work with 3 districts in the state.
Actually, Keith, if you could provide me with your email address, or I probably have it from one of the IOC invitations.
I don't know if you do, but it's a Scout Troop. 2 T's, 2 O's, 438 at cox.net.
Got it. Got it.
Okay.
I assume you're
I
wanting
was
to
a scout leader for 34 years.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
I
assuming
just
you
won
wanted
the Governor's Lifetime Achievement Award for volunteerism.
Wow, congratulations. Thank you for all your community service. You're busy.
I try.
Thank you. Okay, so Mike was mentioning specifically for you, the special education brief prepared by medical class. And then Michael Leva, our contracts and grants, he will also send you some resources as well. Michael oversees the Meaningful Careers Committee that I chair. I think Jason and Sarah have some stuff for you as well. So thank you so much for your involvement. Okay. Anything else from the public? Our only other public member besides Keith, who we do so appreciate, is Leanne. Okay, crickets, guys, we're going to get out of here on time today. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for the hard work that you all been doing, particularly on our DDD budget crisis. And they're reaching out to legislators for any of these issues. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Meeting adjourned at 11:58 a.m.